Happy birthday!
Bri, what is this?
Something you've been wanting.
You shouldn't have got me anything. I didn't want anything. What is this? I bet I know what it is. You really shouldn't have gotten me this. What is this? This isn't a Snuggie. I didn't want this. It doesn't have even a... Whoa! What's going on, YouTube? What we have here is a brand new in-the-box Steam Deck. Now, I've never held a Steam Deck before. I've never opened one, but we're gonna get into it today, and I have something pretty cool planned for this video. But before that, what I do wanna say is we will be giving this Steam Deck away. Yes, this was supposed to be the 50K giveaway, but it got a little bit away from me. The channel's been growing like crazy lately, so thank you guys so much for all the support. And we are going to be giving this away. I guess we're gonna call it like the road to 100K. That's what we're gonna call this giveaway. So by the end of this video, I'll give details of how you can enter to win it. But first, let's get into it and see how this thing is looking. Like I said, I've never held a Steam Deck, so I have a Nintendo Switch. Actually, I have a bunch of Nintendo Switches, and as you can see, this one right here has not been played in some time. So maybe by the end of this video, I'll be in love with this Steam Deck and I want to buy one of my own. But for now, this one's going to be for you guys. One of the reasons I haven't bought one is because I kind of neglect consoles. I have too many of them, and I'm just always making videos and building Game Boys, so I don't have a whole lot of time to even play game systems anymore. So that's one of the reasons, but I'm using you guys as an excuse so I could actually buy one and check it out. So let's get into it. Little paper, and then here it is. I like how it has the, you can pull the tab, but I'm sure literally everybody just does this. There it is. Wow, this thing is massive. I never realized how huge the thing actually is. So here is my Switch OLED for those that were interested to see the size comparison. If they haven't seen it already, it's like the Switch is almost the exact size. It's a little bit smaller than the whole screen. Hold on, let me take the Joy-Cons off of here. So here's an OLED Switch. So it's almost the same size, but this screen is a little bit bigger. Oh man, it's hefty too. Well, while that's powering on, let me tell you what we're going to be doing with this thing, because obviously I'm not going to keep it. I reached out to Extreme Rate because they just came out with new shells, like a complete replacement shell for the Steam Deck, and I asked them, hey, I'm going to do a giveaway with this thing. Would you guys want to send out a shell for me to try to swap it out with it, and then we'll give it away? So shout outs to them because they came through and they did supply this shell for us to do a shell swap on this thing today. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into because I asked them if they would be willing to donate the shell for the giveaway before I really looked into how much goes into being able to swap this shell off and then put this new one on. So we're in for it today. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and just set this thing up. So it looks like it's installing right now. I just want to make sure everything works before we move on to doing the shell swap. But while that's finishing up, let's go ahead and take a look at this Extreme Rate shell. So I went with the chameleon, like purplish blue. I thought that one looked really cool. There were some really cool clear ones as well, but I've seen some people doing the clear ones and I wanted to do something that I hadn't seen yet. So this is what we got. Here are all the different buttons. The other stuff in the box is like a little suction cup, which we probably won't use. We might, but I have a heavy dutier one. And then some screws and some springs, so we'll just go ahead and set all that to the side. Oh wow, I really like this. This one has like a really smooth finish on it. Feels really good. The original shell's got more of a texture feel on it, but this feels really smooth. I actually like that a lot, personally. Let's see. So this is some of the adhesive. Go ahead and set that to the side. All right, it is finally booting back on. I used this earlier, so that definitely works. Desktop mode actually looks pretty nice. So once I tested out all the buttons and made sure everything was feeling right, I went ahead and powered down the system and we can go ahead and get started. So there are 8 screws on the back that you have to remove first. And if you do plan on doing this yourself, I would go ahead over to the Extreme Rate YouTube channel. I'll link the video in the description. They have a whole like hour-and-a-half long tutorial on how to get the shell open and get all the components swapped over to the new shell. So once you get the back off, they tell you to just start taking components off around the motherboard first. I went ahead and took some of the screws out, and then I went and started pulling off the button on the left side of the trigger, because we're going to go ahead and pull, well, this is really the right side, but from the left side, what we're looking at is how I'm going to refer to it in the video. So on the left side right here, go ahead and pull out the stick first. What I noticed right away when taking this thing apart is that this thing feels like it's supposed to be easy to take apart. Like all the ribbons are really well made. They're really strong and like sturdy ribbons. You can see the blue tabs on them. Those are really sturdy for pulling the ribbons out of their connection points, and all of the connectors just felt really solid. So as we're working our way out, I'm just kind of keeping track on my desk on where the screws went. The kit does come with some aftermarket screws, but I wanted to keep all of the original screws with the components that they went with just to make it easier to keep track of what goes where. I did end up misplacing like 1 or 2 screws along the way, and the screws that came in the kit were great for replacing those ones. This thing definitely has a lot of screws. Moving on to the right side here, it's pretty much the exact same as the other side, so I'm just taking things out slowly. Once you get the sticks out, it makes it a little bit easier because you can lay the whole Steam Deck flat on its face. And then after we get those out, we're going to move over to taking out the motherboard. So same thing, we take out this part right here, which is the heatsink over the CPU, I believe. In their instructional video, they suggest heating up the little sticker label to peel it up, but I just peeled it up really slowly and I didn't have any issues with that. And right here, we just removed the SSD. So if you want to do a SSD swap, it's all right here in front of you. You don't even have to take the left and right part of the board out. It's just right on the motherboard. It's a really easy swap. So now we're removing the motherboard, and there is a hidden ribbon underneath. You have to watch out for this one. That's probably the hardest ribbon to take out in the whole thing, and it's really not that bad at all. Next thing, we're going to remove the fan, and then we're detaching the ribbon that connects to the screen and removing the speakers. And the speaker wire is really fragile. You got to be careful with this one. Because it feels like you're going to rip it at any second. So I just went at it slow and then cut the tape that was holding it in place. And now we just have to remove the headphone jack, which is just held in by 2 screws. And then you just kind of got to wiggle it out. It comes out. You just kind of got to pry it at it a little bit. I detached the ribbon just to make it a little bit easier. Then it pulls straight out. So now we are on to the hardest part, or arguably the hardest part. I think it's definitely the hardest part of doing this swap, which is getting the screen out of the original shell. So lucky for me, I do have a hot air rework station. I definitely would not do this with a hairdryer like they suggest. Definitely get a hot air rework station to get this thing nice and loosened up on the adhesive side, and get a good suction cup as well. I have a pretty good suction cup right here. And it was still pretty tough. I'm hitting it with heat and kind of trying to, you don't want to pull up on it too much with the suction cup. You just want to pull up on it just enough to get some sort of plastic pry tool in there. I would not advise using the metal one. Definitely use some plastic ones so you don't scrape off any of the screen. So I'm just kind of pulling at it, heating it, and then it gets to the point where if you have another person, definitely have them help you out, because then they can hit it with the heat while you're prying at it. I had my wife come in and help me out a little bit once I got to a certain point. As you can see here, she's hitting it with the heat while I'm just kind of shoving the little plastic spudgers in there and letting the screen kind of do the work for me, because I don't want to pry at it too much in case I break the screen. I really was scared I was going to break the screen, so I just kept hitting it like this, and this took me probably about 10 minutes. It really did not take me a lot of time. So shout out to the wife for helping me out. Thank you, Briley, for helping me.
You're welcome.
A lot easier when you have a third hand, because you need to honestly apply heat while you pry, and it's like impossible to do with one hand because like you have to hold it in place, pry, and then apply heat. So, and I didn't have to use this metal thing. Don't use this. Get a bunch of these, like get like 4 or 5 of these, and then just slowly put them in, and then heat it up, and then put another one in, and then just go around until it slowly peels itself up. That's what I did. So an annoying part about taking the screen off is you're going to have to get all of this adhesive, this old adhesive off. I was just scraping at it with a plastic spudger and then applying some isopropyl alcohol. It comes off eventually, but it just takes forever. This took me longer than actually getting the screen off, because I wanted to make sure that the screen was going to lay completely flat down on the new adhesive, on the new shell. So yeah, you want to definitely spend a good amount of time making sure you can get this as clean as possible, and definitely use a plastic tool or you will scratch the screen. Moving back to the Steam Deck shell, the old shell, we have to take all the screws out that are holding in place the, I guess it's like the undercarriage, I don't know what to call it. It's like the skeleton that holds all the parts inside. We have to take all these screws out so we can transfer this over to the new shell. And we're getting pretty close to being done. I'm peeling this off. I peeled it off really slowly. They say to hit it with heat, but again, I didn't feel I needed to do that, and it came off pretty easily. So now we're on to just putting the buttons in and putting in all of the ribbon cables that are attached to the top of the shell that we just peeled off. This part's a little bit time consuming, and honestly, I put the buttons in, but I probably should have just waited because the buttons kind of fall out as you're working on it. So I should have just waited to do that right before I was about to put all the components back in. So we have to go ahead and put the fan screens in as well. Those just kind of stick onto the shell. They give you brand new ones, so that's kind of nice. And the rubber membranes have to go in place too. I was kind of surprised that the membranes, they kind of looked lower quality than I thought. I thought they would be a lot nicer. They were kind of like cut. They looked like somebody cut them with scissors to make them fit correctly. So that was kind of interesting, but they feel fine. But I just thought that was kind of funny. And then we got to go ahead and start putting the triggers in. The triggers are kind of frustrating to get in, but they're really not too bad. Overall, this thing is not that bad to take apart and put together. When I got to the end of it, I thought it was okay. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So, but their video was very helpful. I'm not sure if I would have been able to do this without the tutorial video. I probably could have, but instead of it taking me like a couple hours, it would have probably taken me like 6. I would have had to like really keep track of where everything was going. And then here we are again having to scrape off some more adhesive. You spend a lot of time scraping off adhesive because you don't want that screen to look like it was put in after. You want it to look seamless, and I did a pretty good job of making it look, you know, legit. And then once I got all the adhesive off, I went ahead and did just kind of like a dry fit. I slapped the screen in there and make sure it was flush, and then I started applying the new adhesive to the inside of the shell. Once you have all the adhesive on, you can go ahead and slowly lower the screen in place and then give it a little bit of pressure and some wipe down, and it's good to go. We can move back to the inside of the shell. So be sure to feed that wire pretty good for the speakers. Make sure it's out of the way for any of the screws. Go ahead and pop the headphone jack back in and attach the 2 ribbons, and then it's just those 2 screws holding that in place. And now we can move on to connecting the screen and then putting the motherboard in place. So there's that one ribbon that we have to attach for the motherboard, but there was another ribbon that I had taken out that you'll see later. I had to sneak it back in because I had forgotten to put it on. It's on the left side here. You see that one white ribbon. There's supposed to be 2. So go ahead and put the SSD back in, and then the fan. All this is pretty straightforward. I would say that this is probably one of the easier parts of putting it back together. But then right here is one of the hardest parts, is taking these touch sensor pads, the plastic, off and getting it transferred over to the new plastic. I had the hardest time getting this thing pried up. The adhesive is really strong, but I was able to do it. It just felt like I was going to break it. I didn't want to pry at it, but I just gave a lot of force and it popped right off. So I was able to get the new ones on and start screwing the rest of it back together. When you swap over the touch pads, they give you some new adhesive to use, but honestly, the old original adhesive is so strong, you can just slap the pad right onto the new plastic piece. That's what I did, and I'm sure it's going to be fine. So right about now is when I was thinking I was about to be done, but then I saw this little ribbon sitting on my desk, and I thought, oh man, I hope this isn't going to be that hard to sneak in here. So I loosened up the motherboard a little bit, and I was able, with some finesse, to get it plugged in on the bottom here without having to take out too many screws. And then we just have to go to the back shell here and screw in those back button pads, the L3s and R3s, I believe, are the buttons that are there. Screw them in, and then we can go ahead and start clipping this thing back together. And I was a little bit nervous, but moment of truth, this thing did turn back on right away, and all the buttons were functioning perfectly fine. So we were successful in getting this thing good and swapped over to a new shell. So there we have it, guys. We successfully swapped the shell on the Steam Deck. I think it turned out pretty good. Let me know what you guys think about this colorway. I really like it. Overall, the shell swap is probably like a 3 on the difficulty scale, but it's probably like a 9 on the time consumption and frustration scale. It's not that bad, but it probably did take me about 2.5, 3 hours total to get everything done, and I was filming it, so that adds a little bit of time, just making sure everything's in focus. But yeah, it wasn't too bad. The giveaway for this bad boy will be launching tomorrow, and there will be multiple ways to enter by following my different social media platforms. And once it goes live, I'll leave a link to it down in the comments section of this video. So be on the lookout for that video with the link to enter, and be sure to subscribe and like this vid to help get us to 100K. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all